will make my day, pal.
Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, when does it end? Assassination. Let me try this again. Assassination attempt number 3 on Trump. Did you hear this greatest weird story?
Allegedly, yeah. A gentleman with a loaded gun attempted to attend. Where was this, Brad? Coachella?
Yeah, out in California. I mean, man, I tell you what. And you know what? We kidded about this last week. Kamala Harris could be caught in a compromising position with Joe Biden. Donald Trump could be caught breaking into a New York bank, and it would still be tied, right?
Absolutely, it would be, and it won't make any difference, Brad. And I still think, unfortunately, this is maybe an unpopular prediction, Brad, but I think that folks on the left, at some point, there will be a feigned security crisis. Let's just say, we'll be careful how we say this. There'll be a feigned, fake, hoax security crisis against Kamala Harris to get a little bit of sympathy for her in the next 3 weeks.
Well, who knows? I mean, it's so bizarre. I don't know if this was this past Saturday Night Live, but this morning I was listening to another radio station. They were playing some clips from Saturday Night Live where they have, I think this guy is the funniest guy in Saturday Night Live, Kenan Thompson. He's been there a long time.
You're right.
And he does some great bits. And apparently he does this one thing where one of my favorite things is he does Black Jeopardy. Have you ever seen Black Jeopardy before?
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, my God. He's the latest one. I don't know which game show he's doing because I couldn't quite figure it out because I'm not a big game show guy. But the guests on the game show are Kamala Harris and the second gentleman. And it's really funny. Maya Rudolph has Kamala Harris down physically and voice-wise as well, too. The mannerisms, it's bizarre how good she does. It's almost
She's so good at it. She's so good at it.
It's almost like going back to the old days of Sarah Palin, where you had, remember they had the classic picture where, who is that? And what's her name? Come on.
It was Tina Fey.
Tina Fey and Sarah Palin, who came on the show, and remember when they dressed identically? And it's to the point where it's like, okay, which one is the real, which one is the fake? They're that close.
It was pretty close. It was neck and neck.
Oh,
and I
God.
remember Tina Fey had actually said some very unflattering things about Sarah Palin,
right?
Personally. So I was surprised that at least they interacted professionally on the show. Lord knows what the terse conversation that might have happened backstage. I would imagine that Sarah Palin was above that and wouldn't have been petty about the personal attacks from Tina Fey. But anyway, you're right though, Brad. They were spitting images.
Oh, and what you just said is interesting. To me, that is the height of when you are confident in yourself. When somebody goes after you and someone makes fun of you and you show up at their place saying, okay, what were you saying about me again? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not running from an attack, and it's showing her security that she could go there and also have a laugh at herself. Now, she did say a lot of silly things.
Right.
I mean, all you need to know, Brad, is that I could see St. Charles County from my back porch.
Well, let me ask you this. As a former comms guy, if you were on the staff of, at that point in time, Sarah Palin, and you were one of her advisors, would you advise her to not or go do the Saturday Night Live thing? Would you?
Absolutely. I would have absolutely. If we had gotten the invite, absolutely go do it.
So you're going like, what do we got to lose, right?
Yeah. And also, I mean, it shows, like you mentioned, Brad, it shows you have a good sense of humor. It shows you're not afraid of criticism. And also, I'll have you know that if she had declined an invite from Saturday Night Live, that then becomes news. And then it becomes, oh, look at this woman taking herself so seriously. Typical Republican. can't even take a joke.
Right, exactly. Well, okay, we could talk about that all morning because of the fact I find those kind of things, interactions in the media, very fascinating. But we've got important stuff to do. That's John Combest. He puts together this list every single day. Never missed a day, even holidays like today. He's there grinding out this list, 20, 30, 40 things on it, sometimes even 50. We distill it down to the top 3. We bring this guy in.
I'm Casey Kasem.
And what's his job?
Now on with the countdown.
He does the countdown. He starts off with...
In third place...
Brad, I feel like I'm dragging you kicking and screaming back to your sports talk radio days, because for the third time in about 10 days, we're going to talk about Harrison Butker. Now, Brad, I hope no news headlines have spoiled this for you. What's the latest development? If you had to speculate using your wild speculative skills, what's the latest development in Harrison Butker's political evolution? Do you care to take a guess?
When did this happen? Is this something that's happened?
It happened over the weekend, Brad.
I don't know about this. I would say that he came out and endorsed Kamala Harris.
That would have gotten a whole lot of it. We know that wouldn't happen, because then it would have been a redemption story about the right-wing nut job who came to his senses. No, Brad, this is a fascinating story. I'm actually, there's very few stories that really excite me, but this is one. Brad, Harrison Butker has started his own political action committee.
Really?
We have, first of all, let's all agree that we need more PACs.
Yeah, right.
We need more cleverly named PACs. His PAC, Brad, Upright PAC. Get it? Upright values. When you're a kicker, you split the uprights.
Right. At first,
PAC.
I'm going like, okay, I'm thinking of a standing upright, but okay, the uprights. Yes, he kicks the ball between the uprights.
Splitting the uprights. So, Brad, here's what's fascinating about it to me. By the way, I would not have seen this piece if it wasn't for the great Tony Bateo of Tony's Kansas City. He linked to the KCTV story about this PAC. Now, Brad, here's why I think it's fascinating. Here's my working theory of what happened here. Somebody from a large political consultant group, and soon enough, I'm sure we'll find out who when we look at some of these campaign finance reports. Somebody from an established group went to Harrison Butker, who had a relationship either with Josh Hawley or who had a relationship with Butker, probably with Hawley, and said, look, you can continue to fortify your voice in American politics, and you can elect more people like Josh Hawley. Don't let your voice go to waste. You need to seize this moment. By the way, we'll collect a little fundraising commission and a little management fee and a little consultant fee every month. Anyway, Harrison, you can continue your legacy of electing conservatives, and we'll take a little cash. I think it's brilliant, Brad. Now, I went to the Missouri Ethics Commission website, where if Harrison Butker wants to dabble in Missouri politics, he would need to fill out his paperwork. And I went to a couple hotspots on the Missouri Ethics Commission website, and I didn't see Upright PAC listed. So my guess is that he's probably not going to be playing in the 2024 elections, but he's seizing the moment right now with this window of attention that he's got to let people know, look, I'm starting a PAC. Folks should contribute to it. And the management of this is just going to be awesome. I can't wait to see if we can reverse engineer, Brad, who it was that actually went to him and pitched him on this.
Okay, now, does he have to register with the MEC before he starts the PAC, or can he register after he starts the PAC and starts doling out some cash?
I think he has to do it. Gosh, that's a great question, Brad. I don't think he can accept a check. I don't think he can accept a check unless he's filed with the MEC.
So in order for him,
let me interrupt. Hold on real quick. He also will file with the Federal Elections Commission. He's not just going to play in Missouri politics. Like, I'm sure he wants to give to federal candidates and race his profile there too. But if he wants to play in Missouri races, he has to file with the MEC.
So and what you're saying is you're being a little bit somewhat facetious when you say that somebody's making money off of him. Are you being truthful? In other words, somebody.
I'm not joking at all. Like, somebody's going to get a really nice fundraising commission. Somebody's going to get a huge management fee, because you go to Harrison Butker and you say, look, these federal campaign finance laws are very complicated. It takes a whole lot of management. You don't want to go to jail for your beliefs, Harrison. let us manage this for you. We do it for everybody. We'll just take a little management fee, a little consulting fee. You're going to be the face of it. You're going to continue talking about your values. So multiple people will make a ton of money off this PAC, Brad. I think it's beautiful.
Well, it's because somebody in Jefferson City is going to make a payday out of this, kind of correct?
Yeah, or DC. I mean, people in DC and Jeff City. Here's what I envision. It's 2026 and it's October. And it's not a presidential year, which is a great time for him to start because you kind of start small. You will be driving through the Kansas City area and you'll be pulling the old Brad Hildebrand and pushing buttons on the radio. And you're going to hear in the middle of Chiefs season, Harrison Butker endorsing Mark Alford for Congress. So Mark Alford will get cash that was raised by consultants for Harrison Butker, which will go to the campaign of Mark Alford, where consultants will take a piece of that cash and take that money and give it to other campaigns who will take a piece of that cash. It's everybody just gets a little bit of piece of that cash, Brad.
Except for Brad with his radio stations.
Oh, there we go. There we go, Brad. I texted somebody Friday. Remember when we had technical issues because I brought up campaign spending and I asked how many seconds it would take for when I was done until we got some kvetching about radio ads. But we were distracted by technical issues, so we didn't get to do it. But yes, Brad, and everybody can contact Brad at 314-280-8880. There's still time to get your ads on the radio. And you can also text Brad and let him know if you live in the Westplex how much you enjoy in the morning hearing clever stories about Central Park and other New York activities instead of hearing the Brad and John show from 7 to 8.
John just not going to let that go, is he? Okay.
Why have local content where you talk about local issues when you can hear some New York folks talk about New York stuff? And that leads us nicely into the federal story number 2, Brad.
One of these days, I will have a radio discussion with you, and I will discuss this from a radio programming viewpoint, and you will just completely disagree with me, but that's another whole nother story. Okay, number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
I didn't know something, Brad. You learn something new every day. I was listening to Congressman Eric Burlison on KZRG radio down in Joplin. He was on Morning News Watch. I have a link to it up this morning. Eric Burlison said, did you know with all this controversy going on about FEMA and how they're spending their money, do you know that FEMA is sitting on unspent cash, Brad? Have you heard this?
Why does that not surprise me?
And why does it not? I guess we shouldn't be surprised. But to the credit, Ted, who's one of the morning hosts, asked Eric Burlison out the gate. He said, Congressman, there's been a lot of talk that FEMA is actually sitting on a ton of cash that's not being spent. And Ted, the host, was like, is this some kind of right-wing internet rumor? Is this actually true? And Congressman Burlison pointed out that, yes, FEMA is still sitting on pandemic money, Brad, money that had been allocated during the pandemic. As Congressman Burlison pointed out, the pandemic was 2020 and 2021. And if your federal program can't spend the money, hasn't found a use for COVID money since 2021, it's time for lawmakers to claw it back. And to cut to the chase, Brad, Congressman Burlison said, look, this could all be solved under a President Trump presidency. And also when Congress gets back next year, Congressman Burlison said there are mechanisms by which lawmakers can start to claw back some of this money. So Lord knows what it will take to actually get that passed. But Brad, that's one of the things that, if you learn something new every day in the news, I had no idea that FEMA was really sitting on a ton of money still while citizens need help.
John, I'm going to tell you something you're not going to believe.
What's that?
The city of St. Louis is sitting on some cash from the pandemic, and the city of St. Louis is sitting on $250 million from the ramps. Did you know about that at all, John? Did you know anything about that?
I hadn't heard about that. I do know that I haven't gotten my reparations approved.
They can't hire any police officers, but yet they've got pandemic money and Stan Kroenke money that's sitting, for a while, the big controversy was it was sitting in a non-bearing interest account. That's great. You as a financial guy, isn't that, hold on a minute, I got a cough here. I guess one of the interesting things that I learned as a young guy in the radio business, I got to know, matter of fact, Kathy Edelman until she recently retired. She was Ron Grubbs, my boss's secretary, and then when, I don't know, through all the different changes in the ownership and stuff like that, she became like the HR person at CBS and then ultimately Intercom and then Odyssey. But I remember when she was working in the old days, she would tell me that the last thing she would do before every day she left for at the end of the day, she would call, this was back in the day, you didn't have the internet, she would call her banker, the station's banker, and they would sweep the account, the money that was in the account, in the checking account that had not been used that day. They would sweep it into an overnight interest-bearing account, and they would make money on essentially the balance being in the overnight depository, so to speak. And I'm thinking to myself, well, hold on a minute now. How do you make, well, when you got a significant amount of money, I don't know how much the station had, but you know the deal. You worked for Monsanto. You're a financial guy. I mean, the amount of money that $250 million, $250 million gains in a day would make most of us have the lifestyle of a king. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And depending on the account, depending on who the your financial services, and it depends on what fund you in, because if you put it in a fund and they pay out at the end of the month, if you sweep that money, Brad, on the 30th and you hold it there till the 1st and take it out on the 1st, then you get whatever monthly payment that is. That's just not even for overnight interest-bearing accounts. But your point, the city of St. Louis might as well put the money under Tashara's mattress.
Right, just to the point where like, okay, what level of finance is it that, once again, we were a relatively small radio station. They were taking the money that was in the checking account and investing it overnight and making some interest on it. And yet the city of St. Louis at the time was sitting on, that was before they divvied up the money. I think it was like $500 million. I think that was.
It was, yeah. And you know what? When we talk about government efficiency, Brad, that rolls right into story number one.
And boy, John's got the segues going on this morning.
The number one
headline from the St. Joseph News Press, an editorial, Brad. The headline, with government, less is less. I put the story at number one, Brad, because this is an editorial after your heart. The point of the St. Joseph News Press editorial, Brad, we've had enough with these government holidays. Today, we can't even agree whether today is Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day. But you know what? The St. Joseph News Press asks, why is it a holiday anyway? People have questions about voting 3 weeks before the election. Good luck getting an answer from a government official. We've had enough, Brad. President Joe Biden made Juneteenth a holiday. So the news press goes through and says that the county, Buchanan County, Brad, they have 13 holidays, 2 more than the federal government. So I agree. I happen to agree. I think I'm pretty confident where you stand on this, Brad. Enough with the holidays. And one more thing that the news press points out, the city took a stance where they said essentially that if you add a holiday, you got to take one away. It looks like that's what they decided. And they end their editorial by saying, the news press ends their editorial by saying, it seems reasonable. At some point, if everything is a holiday, then nothing is. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day, Brad.
Well, John, a couple of points on that, and you know how I feel about that. The thing that just sort of cracks me up about this is, they're always talking about, we went through it again, last week, the week before, because we had to have this continuing budget, whatever they do, because the government was going to shut down. The government shuts down every week, and in this week, it shuts down for 3 days. It's shut down for try doing something, try going to the city, county, state, federal on Saturday, Sunday, and especially like today. There's no government. Once again, you call the city hall of any municipality, ain't nobody there today. Maybe the janitor might answer the phone because they're in there cleaning the offices and stuff well, they're probably not even there either. But it's my point exactly. It's the point where every time the government's going to shut down. Okay, well, you know what? Who cares? Because when we talk about the government, that doesn't include the armed services. Those guys and gals are still there defending us. It doesn't include, if it's a municipal
air
water...
traffic controllers.
Right. It doesn't include air traffic controller. It doesn't include the municipal workers who are running, the sewage treatment plants and things like that, because that's a 7-day-a-week, 24-hour, 7 type job. And once again, it's like, why do you need that person sitting at that desk, be it in St. Charles, St. Louis City, Jefferson City, Washington, D.C.? What are they doing that's going to further my life tomorrow? And the answer is nothing, because of the fact that they're not public servants in my view. They're people that got jobs that they can never get fired from, and they get a great pension, they get all these days off. And not only that, I do have to criticize you on one thing, because if I went and did a lot of research over the weekend, and I looked at the exact date they took down the Columbus Monument in St. Louis, the day before that matter of fact, the week before they took down the monument, there were like 32 murders and I don't know how many rapes and how many burglaries. The week after they took down the Columbus Monument, nothing. Police had no 911 calls. Yeah. Nobody broke any laws. People on the interstates were driving the exact speed limit or less. Nobody was, if you went to like downtown St. Louis, everybody had money in their meters. It just drastically changed everything. It was amazing. One small feature that they took away from us, something that we saw every day if you went into, I think it was Tower Grove Park where Christopher Columbus statue was. Every single day, once it was gone, it's like flipping a switch. It went from like black to white, from like green to red. It was just like a polar opposite. And if you believe anything I say, I feel sorry for you, because it didn't do a damn thing. You know what I mean?
Gosh, Brad, you are such a colonizer. And a gentrifier. I was nearby Meacham Park. I mean, I wouldn't drive through there, but I was in Kirkwood, and I thought of you, Brad. And I thought about your plans to colonize that area, too. So, way to go, Christopher Columbus 2.0.
Ah, man, it's weird. Okay, we have to take a break.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?